Aha, it's going. Hello, friends. Welcome to Into Form. Here with Jimmy again, and I'm Paul. And Jimmy's in Hawaii,
Woo.
and I'm in Kansas.
Aloha.
Yeah, and yeah. So today we thought we'd talk about something I think it's not well known in the spiritual community, but I think it could be very useful for a lot of people in the spiritual community to kind of look at the different teachings that are out there through a certain distinction of still presence, the still presence teachings versus creation teachings. So I'm kind of gonna create that distinction if you don't mind, Jimmy. We'll just kind of dive right in.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different spiritual teachings out there, or personal development teachings, um, that are kind of trying to do different things. And uh, we live in the information age, so it's all out there available to everybody. All these different teachings on the internet. You can, if you're a spiritual seeker, you start looking for different things, and you'll find a lot of different people teaching a lot of different things. and um, and what what I found in my journey is in the beginning I kind of thought, like, I had the assumption that everybody's basically teaching a different version of the same thing because it all comes from spirit, and then they're all kind of trying to lead you to the same place. And I don't feel that anymore. And I would say it's very clear for me that not every they may all be inspired by spirit. I still feel that's true, but I don't think they're all trying to evoke the same things from us or inspire the same ways of being. I think they are different. All of them helpful. They can all kind of improve upon your current state, but I feel that they are different too. Uh, and so Teal Swan, she's this spiritual teacher I really like. I think she has a lot of good things to say. Um, she makes this distinction between the still presence teachings on the one hand and the creation teachings on the other hand. And if you've been involved with spirituality or personal development work for a while, then this might really light up something in you because once she pointed it out, um, once I read her article and saw what she was talking about, I was like, oh, I totally see it. Like the creation teachings are like law of attraction teachings, manifestation teachings. Abraham and the lady who channels Abraham, I think, would be the best example of the creation teachings. Um, Also, Landmark, which is a personal development company. Uh, they teach be do have, and they teach how to kind of create the life that you want. This is just a couple examples of creation teachings. And then on the other hand, there's these still people who are teaching still presence, and Eckhart Tolle is probably the best example of that because he's so popular. Almost everybody knows him, and uh, um, any of those teachers that are teaching meditation and stillness and kind of finding the inner peace that is within our consciousness without us having to create anything. So also yogis would be in that camp as well. So she says there's these people who are teaching creation, how to create your reality, and then there are these people that are teaching still presence, how to just notice that there's a space of awareness here that's prior to your thoughts and emotions. And in a sense, it's free from your thoughts and emotions, and you can just tune into it at any time. Uh, they're teaching very different things, but in Teal's view, they each have a gift and they each have a shadow side. Um, so I don't know if you want to jump in here, Jimmy. I've been talking for a little bit, and I just want to give you a chance to uh, see if there's anything coming up for you so far.
No, I'm excited to hear. I'm excited to hear about the shadow sides of
Oh yeah,
these two different avenues of teaching.
I'm saying oh yeah because I haven't told you that part yet. So yeah, when she talked about the shadow sides, it really stood out to me because I see I see one of the I see both of the shadows, and I think they're both pretty big pitfalls. Uh, for the side, like I see the side on the creation teachings, the people who are using the law of attraction or doing anything to achieve their desires, but in a spiritual way or in a conscious way. So they're you know, not just writing down their goals and taking actions to accomplish their goals. That would be kind of the normal way of going about it, but maybe they're using visualizations and creating emotions, and anyway, they're doing all these spiritual steps to get there. The shadow on that side is it's basically identifying with the ego too much, um, because there's desires that exist that our ego has that can kind of masquerade as spiritual desires. So, for example, some people um, maybe they just want a lot of stuff or something, you know, and they'll be using the law of attraction and those teachings of creation to create that um, external material reality in their life, uh, which isn't bad per se. It can come from a pure place, but the potential shadow or pitfall is that you end up identifying with the ego, which just wants more and more and more and more stuff, and it's never satisfied with whatever you get. So that's the shadow on that side.
Mm.
Um, the shadow on the still present side, it's interesting um, because the people who practice still presence, they're maybe if they've been doing it for a long time, they're really good at stepping out of the ego. You know, like if you listen to Eckhart Tolle, he's always talking about stepping out of the ego and the antics of the ego, um, and also if you practice meditation, that's it's easy to see at a certain point the ego um, kind of moving around very quickly against this background of consciousness and presence. Uh, that those are very different. So the still presence people maybe don't have so much of a tendency to fall into identification with the ego, but the shadow for them is not participating in life because they're just sitting there, they're just being presence, but they're not creating anything. And so they're not generating any of the expansion that comes from creating things. And they're not really participating all that much in life. So you know they're not they may not be generating a lot of new experiences. They're kind of withdrawn. So yeah, that's basically the shadow on the still present side is non-participation.
Mm.
Yeah. So um, I wanted to talk about this because it's interesting because I when we were talking before this video, Jimmy, I just noticed that I'd been practicing still presence and meditating quite a bit, and you've been quite in a flow of
Creation.
creation. Yeah. So I kind of, and Teal talks about them as they're kind of opposites. They're opposites because the one is not trying to create very much at all, but just focused on the presence, the peace, the stillness. And the other one is, of course, creating a lot. Um, but not yeah not necessarily connected with that which doesn't change um so
As much.
yeah as much.
Yeah, I wanted to say too before we go like too into it. Some of the other things that I'm noticing as you share those shadows of the creation teachings and the still meditation teachings, I find that like in the stillness meditation teachings, like you said, that there's a tendency of a lack of creation. And I think that it's also easy when really deep and invested into like meditative practices that there can be an avoidance pattern that can form of like avoiding service or avoiding creation or avoiding tapping into the self's inner creativity, um, because like with meditation, to avoid that with meditation and these still spiritual practices. Like I'm reminded of Mickey Singer, for example, who is all about stillness, and he was meditating a lot every day, and he just wanted to be in the woods and be quiet and focus on the spiritual practices and not. And luckily for him and for all of us, he really chose to surrender to life and start saying yes to the things that life had called him to do, and that pulled him into more service and more action. He ended up creating multi-million-dollar companies, you know, through service, through spirits like guidance and nudging him. But if it was up to him originally, and if he didn't choose to go through his surrender experiment of life, and really surrender, then he would have just avoided all of that with meditation and stillness. So I think that that avoidance can be really amplified with those teachings, the avoidance of creation. And then yeah, on the creation side, uh, where I feel there's also a part of that in those teachings, um, you can get caught up in manipulation and really like fast paced burnout kind of energy of like, I got to make it happen. I got to make it happen. You know, I got to manifest my dreams and make it happen. And there's a lot of make it happen energy that can happen in the teachings, which creates anxiety and all sorts of things. And then there's also a potential tendency to manipulate those around you to make sure that your vision, your goals come into fruition.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of like those shadowy aspects to those teachings as well. Um and yeah, I think what we're looking at today is like what's really the balance, like how do you show up in a way that you're not ignoring the potency of stillness and its practice, and how capable stillness meditations are in helping us disidentify from ego,
Yeah.
um, and then also have enough ego to still be like a personality, to still be an individual that wants to create and and is distorted from oneness in beautiful ways that are expanding the universe,
Yeah.
by what we're creating, by what we're offering. Um, yeah,
Man, it's I'm just struck by it's such a profound thing that we're talking about. Um, Man, because if you can really achieve that balance, I think that that's an amazing life. Um, that's a really, really amazing life. But I wanted to just respond to like I feel like with me, like I feel almost a bias within me towards the still present side. I remember I don't have it as much anymore. But a few, oh, not too long ago, I really didn't. Um, I really like when people would talk about the law of attraction and manifesting things. I almost had like a I had an aversion to it and also like a judgment of those people.
mm-hmm.
Because and I
Those
realized
woo woo, those woo woo spiritualists.
yeah, well, and I think I may have thought it was woo woo. But I also, what I see now is I kind of intuited that shadow that Teal talks about of what you were talking about is manipulation, you
Yeah.
know, and being too fast paced. That's a good way of kind of getting your mind around what is the ego identification that she's saying is the pitfall of the creation teachings, because that's what it can look like. You know, it can look like I need something to happen. You know, I'm trying to make something happen, which misses the still presence that doesn't need anything to happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel well, just to say a little bit more about that, I mean, it's detached. You know, it doesn't need a particular outcome. It doesn't need any particular thing to happen to be happy. um,
Yeah.
and like I feel almost within me, I feel almost a bias there. Like that kind of feels like
Mm.
very, very natural for me to. And I feel like that's uh, kind of fed into, in an unconscious way, the judgment that I used to have of people who were doing the creation teachings, because I was like, you guys are, it seemed like they were missing the point,
Yeah.
because it seemed like they were just chasing after more desires, without seeing that this awareness doesn't need any desires to be fulfilled, to feel joyful and blissful and happy. It doesn't need anything to happen.
Yeah.
It's just being. Um,
Yeah. That true experience of feeling whole and complete, and self-satisfied just by experiencing experience, just by being. And yeah, I feel like that's the non-attached, the non-identified, the surrendered. Um, and I get, yeah, for you, is like seeing the world, or the that side of the spiritual world, the people who were, it seemed like they were just chasing after desires that were um, mm, meaningful or meaningless on lesser, greater degrees, right? Like I get that, like a lot of people, I get your experience was like, oh, I don't know how meaningful those goals seem, but go for it,
well, it was kind of
um
like, what's the point? What's the point of chasing your
yeah.
desires? What's the point of manifesting things if there's already a, uh, like you were saying, like a
um,
wholeness here? This
yeah.
awareness doesn't need anything to be added to it. It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing too how, like, yeah, when that space is like there, right? Like if I'm like, yeah, I'm so whole and complete in my being, I don't need anything. I'm not attached to the things I have, I've been a minimalist for years now, I don't have a lot of things. I'm not a big things person. And yet something that's been happening for me recently is this like deep desire for opulence, this deep desire for a lot of money. um and for powerful reasons, right? Like I don't want a lot of money just so I can, like, I don't know, go buy a boat or some shit. Like I really want to create experiences, I want to create value, I want to be able to invest in powerful new age companies and corporations, right? Like there's a lot of potential. Like I feel this urge that like spirit wants to serve through me, through my money, and if I was just like, oh, I'm so whole and complete, well then maybe I wouldn't catch that inspiration, maybe I wouldn't catch that and be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. That's devote a lot of time and energy and creative juju into generating money, right? Like that seems like such a non-spiritual thing to do from the stillness teaching perspective.
Hmm.
But in my world, it's like, yeah, that opulence is such a part of God. It's such a part of the experience of life that God wants me to have that experience of extraordinary opulence. And then also wants me to serve inside of that opulence, to share it, to give it. And it's neat to like watch the process in me where I can stay like, I'm also not attached. I'm also not attached to that. I
Yeah.
don't need I don't need money. I don't need to like go that route of life to be satisfied. I feel like, and that's the stillness, right?
Yeah.
But to allow myself to go out there and create material things for spiritual purposes is kind of the idea of, well, remaining non-attached, because I see a lot of people on the other side so attached to their vision of what they need to manifest, what they're launching their rockets of desires and whatever
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
called, right? And like, yeah, and if this doesn't get here, then wow, I failed. Like I clearly wasn't spiritual enough if I didn't manifest my $60,000 car by the end of 2021. You know what I mean, or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, that's, yeah. So it's just finding that balance. But spirit is really wanting me to actually create material things and have those goals, and also remain still in that process and not rushed. I'm not manipulating to get there. I'm getting there through the cleanest routes of service. I'm really opening up to what is mine to serve on that path of creating what I want to create. um, and it's opening up such profound inspiration inside of me. Deep
Mm.
service, like deep and rich, like service that's going to take like 10, 20, 15, 30 years. projects. Like I'm starting to get all these ideas for really intense service projects, and it takes a lot of time, energy, resources. It takes a lot of these things that is the creation. Get out there and create and have goals and be productive and move with that energy.
Yep.
And within that all, how do I stay slow, grounded, meditative, satisfied, whole, and complete?
Yeah. Yeah. So talking about the balance, Jimmy, one thing that's kind of standing out to me from your sharing is that balance. I don't think I think it's uncommon that people um, have find that balance. I think because I think it's um, not necessarily easy to find. I think it's a counterintuitive balance because I think we either want to be all one way or all the other way. You know what I'm saying? Like we either want to be all in the still presence, like none of this matters. I'm detached. I'm beyond it all. I'm transcendent. It doesn't affect me. Whatever can happen, doesn't matter. All in that, or all in the like you were describing very well, all in the creation side of not really being in touch with the inner peace, but almost like striving to manifest those desires and pouring yourself uh, all the way into it to creating those things like an artist, you know, like an artist or an author of your life.
Mm,
I feel like it's for us, it's um, to part of us at least, it seems natural or intuitive to be all in one or all in the other, but to kind of bring both together at the same time, I don't think it's something that we're used to doing. It's kind of counterintuitive, you know, because I don't feel like it's I like to me when I feel into kind of bringing them together, it doesn't feel like they stay separate. It feels like they almost become a third thing. You know
mm-hmm,
what I'm saying? So it's like a movement or a flow. Like I'm creating, I'm experiencing, and I'm in that flow, but also within it,